This week we visit the wonderful Yosemite Valley at Yosemite National Park. We had an amazing week there, and we're here to tell you all about it. That and more on RV Miles.
This spring, LL Bean wants to help you feel great out there with gear, tips, and advice for heading outdoors and exploring all the possibilities of the season. Here's one of our favorite camping hacks. You can make your own fire starters by rubbing cotton balls in petroleum jelly, then storing them in an old medication bottle or a mint tin. These compact starters fit in a pocket and light up quickly for easy campfires on cool nights. For more fun ideas, easy how-tos, and inspiring stories, visit llbean.com/guide.
Welcome to episode number 274 of RV Miles. I'm Jason.
And I'm Abby, and we are two full-time RVers who, along with our three boys, Jack, Ethan, and Henry, have been crisscrossing North America on one epic road trip since 2016. Here at RV Miles, we talk all things RV and outdoors, from industry news to travel destinations, our national parks, and so much more.
We're coming to you from just outside Redwoods National and State Parks. It's a thing. They're together. It's the national park and state parks that they all work together. Up in the northwestern corner of California, we're headed very close to getting into Oregon and being able to cross off another state on our list.
We are just days away from saying goodbye to California and continuing our Baja to Alaska adventure in a brand new state. But this episode, we want to talk about a place that we just left a couple of weeks ago. Not only do we have an update about this park, but we also want to share our time about it, and that is Yosemite National Park and what is going on in Yosemite Valley right now.
Well, we feel a little guilty because
yes,
we almost skipped going to Yosemite because the weather was supposed to be fairly cold the couple of weeks before we got there. And then we were looking at the weather a few days before we got there, and it was just going to be gorgeous. It was going to be mainly in the 60s and upper 50s the whole time we were there. And so we decided we'd go, and we did. And there was a ton of snow pack still on the ground in lots of areas. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, as you're driving in, it was taller than the truck for sure. Along the side of the road, you could see where the plows had cut through it, and it had been gradually melting. So across the roads, water was flowing. Maybe a half an inch across a lot of the roads. The waterfalls were running really well. In fact, there was something really interesting we'll tell you about a little bit later.
Don't give it all away.
I'm not. I said I'll talk about it later.
Wow. Sorry, everyone. Turn that down.
But the water is melting for sure. And it was cool while we were there, but it was still, getting sort of freezing-ish at night, especially at elevation. Well, now it's just getting warmer and warmer, and the temperatures are expected to really climb in the next couple days here. In fact, here tomorrow, it's supposed to be like 77 degrees, which is phenomenal. But that's causing all that snow to melt very, very rapidly. They got something like 250% more snowfall than they normally get. And it's, of course, not just Yosemite. It's across all the Sierra Nevada and other parts of the country as well. So all that snow is melting rapidly. So Yosemite has decided they will close Yosemite Valley, which is sort of the main part of the park. It's a big park, and there are other areas as well. But most of the valley is going to be closed starting on April 28th, which is this Friday. And then it's going through at least May 3rd, maybe longer. And they do expect that there will be more closures throughout the month of May, or maybe even into June. And this was something we've been concerned about since we were down in Baja. We saw the snow that was happening, and we knew that there might be some issues on our way up through California. We happened to luck out, but
we threaded that needle because when we left Yosemite, I think that following week, they were actually expected to have kind of some really cold weather again. Like the temperature was shifting and snow. And so we got this pocket of a week. And so when we had this kind of on the schedule to talk about, and then we see now that, Yosemite is closing, or at least the valley is closing, and this is going to be a continued thing, we thought, should we talk about this week? It feels kind of bad to be talking about something when we know that there are so many, and we have heard from so many who have lost their reservations for this weekend. This impacts a lot of the camping in and around Yosemite, or it just changes their plans. Even if they do have the campground reservation, the bulk of the valley is closed. And that right now is where spring is kind of happening in Yosemite and the waterfalls. And that's a big draw this time of year. So we went back and forth on whether or not we were going to talk about it. But we know that this is a temporary closure. It's not going to always be like this in Yosemite. And perhaps we can provide some information for a future trip for you, the RVer.
So there's that, and we'll talk a lot more about Yosemite in the second segment of the show. But next, we wanted to share a tip that came from the RV Miles Facebook group. And if you're not a member of the RV Miles Facebook group, you should be, because it's a great place where lots of cool people talk about things like this, and there's no grumps or angry people there involved.
So this was a tip. It actually kind of in 6 years, 6, 7, 8 years of doing this, I think that what Douglas wrote here caught both you and I like,
Yeah. Like,
oh.
Yeah.
It was an oh moment. And
Yeah.
we were both a little like,
Yeah.
oh, we need to make sure we check this. And then B, we should share this, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about it before. So he said, yesterday I heard an ugly crunching sound when raising my stabilizer jack. If your rig has stabilizers like this, and he is showing a picture of sort of the V-shaped ones that have the plate feet down at the bottom.
Standard sort of scissor jack.
Yeah.
So that bottom foot sort of can move.
And he says, make sure there's no debris or gravel on top of the foot before you raise them for travel. Otherwise, you might have trouble getting them fully raised and the stabilizer could be damaged. And he showed this picture, and he had several rocks that were just kind of nestled inside. Yeah. And I was thinking about it, if you have them down, and he had it on a block, he does not have them sitting fully on the ground. But I'm thinking to myself, you walk over to those, and a lot of times you're looking at them from the side.
Yeah.
You just, for you.
I wouldn't have, if I came across that from the side, I wouldn't have seen that.
No, and you put in the drill.
Yeah, you're using the drill. If you're using an impact driver and it makes that loud hammering sound, you might not even hear the crunching happening, and you might be
and it happens so fast when you bring them up.
Yeah.
And I thought, that could add those 3 little rocks in this picture, and we'll put this picture in the show notes so you can see it. Those would cause a lot of damage.
It's amazing what kind of damage a little pebble can do. Like, it gets under your slide when you have it slides across your floor and rip your linoleum up, that sort of stuff.
Poor Sabre.
It's amazing what can happen in those scenarios. So.
Yeah, and so our thanks to Douglas for sharing this in the RV Miles Facebook group, and I had immediately asked me, please share this on the podcast, because this is just one of those pieces of information that just kind of makes you go, like, never thought about that. So, like Jason was saying, you should come over and join the group, because this is the kind of information that people are sharing. It's not just Jason and I, it's 13,000 other RVers who are sharing information that help keep us all informed and safe on the road so we can enjoy our camping season.
Okay, we have one little announcement to make, and then we're going to take a break, but we want to make sure that you know that we are having our next mile marker live event coming up, our monthly night live, first Monday of each month. We have a live stream for our mile marker members.
And we've made it really simple, because now you can just go to rvmiles.com/mile markers, and all of that information is there to join, which, again, the website is back. The website is a work in progress, but it is there, and we're writing news articles, and we're doing things in an attempt to hopefully continue to keep you all informed and aware of what's going on. Like with Yosemite, we have an article up there where you can check the dates and get a little bit more information about that if you would like, as well as finding information about becoming a mile marker member, or some of the news that you will probably recognize that Jason is going to include in this week's news video. It's all there over at rvmiles.com. A lot of our Baja to Alaska content is starting to come up there. In fact, I'm working on an article right now about 5 places to camp in Baja. So if that's something you're interested in, we have a whole Baja to Alaska section that is slowly starting to roll out, and that is starting to be there for you to look over so you can plan your major Baja to Alaska adventure. But it's all over there on rvmiles.com, and it's nice to have the website finally up and running again.
Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to tell you all about Yosemite National Park, one of the favorite places that we've been in these 6 years plus we've been on the road.
We'll be right back.
Chances are you've seen them on the road. That's because Blue Ox designs and manufactures the best towing products in the industry. Just look around, you'll find them on highways and campgrounds and anywhere you find people traveling in the great outdoors. Award-winning tow bars, base plates, and brakes, a full line of weight distributing hitches, adjustable ball mounts, and a new line of fifth wheel hitches. With Blue Ox, towing doesn't have to be a drag. To learn more about how Blue Ox can make your travel adventures even more stress-free, visit blueox.com.
This episode is supported by ParkWolf, the ultimate app for visiting U.S. national parks. With ParkWolf, you can view upcoming places and amenities as you drive through the park, locate the nearest gas, food, bathrooms, and pullover points. ParkWolf's wildlife maps show you the best times and places to see or avoid wildlife, along with a feed of the latest wildlife sighting photos from the parks. ParkWolf even makes it possible for you to view your live location and direction on official park maps while staying up to date on current NPS alerts and advisories. ParkWolf keeps working even if you lose service. To learn more, download the ParkWolf app for iPhone free from the Apple App Store today.
Okay, let's talk about Yosemite National Park. First, let's tell you where we stayed. We stayed outside of the park at a full hookup campground. It was called Yosemite Lakes RV Resort. And this is a Thousand Trails campground. If you're familiar with the Thousand Trails membership program, if you're a member, there are various different memberships, and you can get free nights at campgrounds for a certain number of days a month or weeks at a time, depending on your membership.
Can you tell we're not members?
You don't have to be a member to stay at Thousand Trails campgrounds, and we were not.
No.
And this was a really great campground.
Yeah, so we actually weren't supposed to stay here. We were going to do one night to roll in, fill up our water tanks, and we had a boondocking location kind of further up down the road that we had planned. And we got there, and the amenities and kind of how the park was laid out, and it was very quiet in the park. It was very slow. You know, a Thousand Trails park can be incredibly busy, and this one was not. They just weren't in that season yet, but they had a playground and a basketball court, and they had walking trails, and there was just everything, a great laundry room, plenty of space. We could do a buddy site with our friends, and we rolled in. And we thought, you know, the kids are really, really happy here. And I think anyone that travels over a long period of time with kids knows that it is gold when you find a campground where the kids are happy, they're running around and playing, there were other kids there. It was just, the vibe was really, really awesome. And so we decided to, again, extend and go ahead and do the whole week there. And it works out nice because at this Thousand Trails and at most Thousand Trails, you put in for the night you want, but it's all first come, first served in regards to picking sites. So we had the site and we decided to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and stay longer. We're going to extend in. The park wasn't busy, and we didn't have to move the site because, again, it's first come, first served, so no one had it reserved. So that worked out really great for us.
Yeah, to be clear, like you do want to make a reservation, like they
Yes.
do reserve the number of sites they have, but the actual site you pick is not reserved. You like then go in and choose a site on your reservation.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you for making that clear.
Confusing.
It's a little confusing, but in this particular case, it actually worked out really well for us because we didn't have to do any kind of site hopping whatsoever. So we were able to really set up a nice base camp for the week. We had plenty of space. We were on full hookups. We've talked about some some rather expensive campgrounds on the podcast recently, and that's just kind of the cost you pay to go to some of the places that everyone wants to go to. So this campground was about $100 a night, and I do believe that they offer a discount if you stay for a week. So we were able to take advantage of that discount as well. But overall, I really liked this campground. We haven't been to a lot of Thousand Trails in our
Yeah.
time on the road, but I will say that this was probably my favorite of in the Thousand Trail system that we have visited.
Yeah, they can definitely vary in quality, and this was a nice one, and it still felt like a campground. Like it easily could have been a state park.
Yes.
And it's right. I mean, it's very close, 10 minutes, maybe 15 max to the park entrance. But then once you've gone through the entrance, it's a long way into the
Don't think
park.
you're just in the park. I mean,
But
then you have a
it
drive.
is very, very close to the park. Not a lot of the other options closer to the park either, unless you're staying in the park. And this was shoulder season camping, so most of the campgrounds in the park were not yet open.
Another thing about this campground, which is nice to consider for an area like Yosemite, is that they do offer more than just RV camping. They have tent camping sites, they had yurts, they had cabins, they had deluxe cabins. So if you're wanting to plan a family trip and you have all different kinds of travelers in your group, there's at least something where everyone can stay, the tent camper, the RVer, the grandparents can get a cabin or what have you. And I really like that when you get to sort of these more popular parks and when you get these campgrounds, because they have a beautiful creek, beautiful river that runs through. In fact, the water was flowing so much that there was quite a waterfall back in the back tent area of the campground that was absolutely gorgeous. They had activities going on for the kids while we were there. So this is one of those parks where you can have a great base camp for everyone in your group who's all different kinds of travelers, and then have fairly close access to the park as well as to a national forest, and then not be too far from what we consider, I guess, the gateway town for this side of the park, which is Groveland.
Yeah, it's technically a Groveland address, but it was quite the drive into Groveland.
Yes. So let's talk about what we did. And it can get really easy to become overwhelmed when you go to a park like this, to a Yosemite or a Yellowstone or a Grand Canyon, because the parks themselves are so big and there are so many different areas of the park. And you get this feeling of like, I want to see it all. I want to do it all. And we have learned over the years that it is better for us as travelers to not try to cram everything into a week, but to really kind of focus on one major aspect of a park this large. And so for us this time, that was Yosemite Valley. And that was really where we spent the bulk of our time when we did get to go into the park. Because again, like many full-timers, we're working, the kids have school, we're trying to balance just like the day-to-day life up against, being in such an amazing and remote location like Yosemite. And so the bulk of our conversation here is just going to be about the valley.
So the valley is where most of the stunning views you've seen of Yosemite are. You've got Yosemite Falls, you've got Half Dome, you've got El Capitan, and just tons of waterfalls and gorgeous meadows, lots of spots to stop and sort of take in streams and wildlife and what have you. So
the Ahwahnee is down there, the Yosemite Village, Camp 4, the major visitor center, the Ansel Adams Studio Gallery is there. I mean, it is really kind of the heart of Yosemite.
Yeah, and if you want to check out this week's episode of the America's National Parks podcast, I did an episode there on sort of the history of climbing in Yosemite, and climbing has really sort of evolved as a sport in Yosemite. It's sort of the heartbeat of the climbing movement, and where lots of techniques have been learned and refined and everything. So it's interesting to sort of see the climbers on the walls and all that sort of stuff. But when you come into the park, you go through the gates, and then, like we said, it's a sort of a long drive to get down into the valley. But you see some of the valley on the way. You see some other waterfalls that you drive by. You go through lots of tunnels, and it's a beautiful scenic road until you get down into the valley. And once you're down into the valley, sort of the first thing that we came across was a plaque on the side of the road.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which is a site where John Muir and Theodore Roosevelt sat and camped, and sort of the idea of the national parks was basically born at that moment, where they really first drew up ideas about preserving land for the people.
We almost missed it too. We were driving and I happened to catch it and I caught a couple keywords and I said, you have to stop, you have to stop, you have to stop. This is the spot. This is the spot. And we pulled over and I was very surprised by how emotional, like both you and I got standing there at that spot. I started crying a little bit because it was a really intense space for us to be in because obviously our work through the America's National Parks podcast and then what we strive for here as travelers, as a family, as what the parks have meant to us on this journey over the last 7 years, how we have sought parks for healing, how we have sought parks for the time that we have needed as a family. We continue to do that today. And so to stand there and to know that this was the spot that we have talked about and read so much about, and that so much of who we are came from this one camp trip, this one little moment in
Yeah,
time.
we've talked about that moment so many times, and then just
Just
to be there for the first time
yeah, and
was incredible.
it was really a moment I will never forget, and just knowing that I was standing on the same ground where they had walked and where these conversations had happened, and I was looking at the same space that had been the result of why we now have the National Park Service and why we now have these protected areas like where we're sitting right now here in the Redwoods was just really, really, really beautiful. So when you come down into the valley,
Yeah,
please
make sure to
make
stop
sure
there.
to stop there.
We continued on to the main Valley Visitor Center, and it's a nice little village that, like Abby said, the Ansel Adams Gallery is there. That was built in 1902, and it's a store with some amazing Ansel Adams photographs, but also lots of contemporary photographs and photography gear. I actually bought a tripod there.
Yes,
There's
you did.
there's the park film and stuff, but we went into the visitor center to get the Junior Ranger books so we could start on those. And behind the desk at the counter, we didn't get to talk to him, but was Shelton Johnson, who is probably the most famous park ranger there is. He featured really prominently in Ken Burns' National Parks
He features
documentary.
prominently in the Junior Ranger book. Like, so we're in there, and I'm waiting in line to talk to a ranger and kind of get an idea. We wanted to bike that day, which we're going to talk about in a second. And there are moments with Jason just moments that make me love him so, so much because he doesn't get sort of starstruck, I guess, a lot. There's not a lot that really phases Jason. And I'm standing there and he comes over and really quiet. He's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, we've gotten an email about something. Oh my gosh, something's wrong. And he's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I was like, what? And he's like, that's Shelton Johnson over there. He was at the Kid Burns documentary. And he's trying so hard to whisper this all to me because he's only like maybe 10 feet from us.
Yeah,
He's trying so hard to whisper it to me.
that's probably really bad about it.
And he was so excited.
It was, to me, that was bigger than like if George Clooney had walked by at that moment.
It was huge. And as soon as I looked over, I was like, boom, Ken Burns. I see the man. We've watched that documentary so often. I think we had just watched some of it recently as we think about how we want to present our own docuseries.
What was amazing to me, though, is like he's just working behind the desk, right?
I know, he's just at work.
And let's be clear, too, though, that Yosemite, the rangers behind the information desk is like the A team, right?
Yes.
They are all phenomenal. So it's a great place to stop to get lots of information. They know everything. They know which trails are muddy. They know exactly what you're going to get into when you get to a trail and what you're going to see and what you're going to be able to handle and all that sort of stuff.
We didn't get to talk to him, but the ranger I did talk to, he had all the info. And he had all the info because he was out there doing some of it himself. He was telling me, oh, yes, I was just on this trail last week. This is what it was like. But I just heard reports from somebody else that a couple days ago, this particular trail, they have their knowledge is phenomenal and they are so giving with it. He talked to me for a good probably 10, 15
And
minutes.
what you were there to talk to him about was where the best bike route was in the valley. So,
Yeah.
what we decided to do, since now we had good bike weather and we were at a good place to use our bikes, was to take our bikes into the valley and bike around it. And was this ever the perfect place for biking? Yosemite, it's really hard to get around in a vehicle in lots of ways because there's
Especially a truck.
not a lot of parking lots, not a lot of even though this was shoulder season, it wasn't incredibly busy. There were still times when certain parking lots were full. And once the season really gets going, then there's lots more bus availability. Like, so the bus actually goes to the campground, to the Yosemite Valley Thousand Trails. You can actually just get on the bus right there and take that into the park. So those are certainly options, but it was a little too early in season for lots of bus routes. So we were driving in, but then getting on, just parking one time, getting on the bikes, and we could go anywhere in the valley really conveniently. We could take the bikes to places where the roads were closed in some spots to vehicle traffic, but foot traffic and bicycle traffic was allowed. And we're talking like sort of long distances that kind of would have been a pain on foot to do.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so there's 12 miles of paved trails down there in the valley that you can go and bike. We highly recommend it. Another thing we want to talk about too, you have to do when you're down there is you have to go over to the Awani Hotel. You have to spend a little bit of time there. It's such a staple of Yosemite. And we biked over and we ordered from the bar. We had a glass of wine. We sat out on the back porch. The kids played out in the lawn. You have this beautiful view behind you, and you can sit there and you can have a drink. And there's something about the valley because the valley is this mix of incredible nature and trails and spectacular views. And then at the same time, it's filled with, the Yosemite Village and it's got the Awani. And you have sort of this mix of, I don't really know how to describe it. It's like it's almost like I likened it a little bit to an amusement park, but like in a totally not amusement park kind of
Well,
way.
it's
Being like
kind
you're
of
staying on site. You can stay
yeah.
on site. You can have these amenities and these comforts.
The problem with a place like Yosemite is there is no real gateway community, right?
No.
So like when you go to Zion National Park, you've got the town of Springdale right there. When you go to Yellowstone, you've got West Yellowstone. But at Yosemite, it's just there's not a town right there. So if you wanted to leave the park to like go get dinner or something,
Right.
you'd be gone for hours.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't mean that in a negative way. And I'm not articulating this very well, but to stand in Yosemite in all of its grandeur and to be able to have a glass of wine or to bike this trail and go over and have lunch in this cafeteria or go shop in Ansel Adams and have these sort of like experiences, these modern convenience experiences up against these incredible views and hikes and abilities to get away and into nature, and then have the same thing that's called a national park, but be in some place like Badlands where there's nothing like that. It's just the landscape itself. It's two very different experiences. And I feel like we've just been so many places all over the country that sometimes I stand there and I'm like, it's so wildly different. You don't know what you're going to get. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. Even the Grand Canyon is so different, at least the areas that we were at in the Grand Canyon compared to this experience of being like in the Yosemite Valley or being over by Old Faithful.
Yeah, it's very much its own thing. It's very much rooted in the creation of the park itself, which was basically happened because concessionaires were just setting up shop wherever they wanted
Yeah.
to,
And maybe that's some of it. Maybe like deep down in the back of my mind, I had that idea that all of these spaces, all of this all of these amenities that are designed for tourists to keep them comfortable while they're here. All of that is really actually what caused us to have to protect
Yeah.
this space.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a weird, I loved it. I loved having a glass of wine, but also at the same time, yes, that is there
Yeah.
because, yes, we had to protect the park because of that.
So while we were down in the valley, so we, obviously we've been talking about the situation with the snow melt in the water, and the waterfalls are running, the creeks and streams are all running very strong, and it was beautiful. Nothing seemed too dangerous or scary, other than there was some water on pavement, not a big deal at all. But there was water running in places where water clearly doesn't normally run. So you could see it coming down the side of cliffs where it hasn't cut into the cliff. So it's not like an annual waterfall or anything like that. And in fact, as we were getting ready to go one day, we're packing our bikes back up into the truck. A guy comes up to us and starts chatting us up because he saw something and he just wanted to make sure he wasn't the only one seeing it. He saw a waterfall where he was pretty sure there wasn't one before. And we turn and look at it and we're like, no, there was not a waterfall there before. And this was a huge waterfall.
Yeah, he had come up to us and he was like, was there a waterfall there a minute ago? And we're looking, and as we're talking to him though, whatever was up there, whatever was holding the bulk of that water burst.
Just as quick as it appeared, it went away. It was there for
disappeared.
maybe a minute.
Yeah.
And then it just trickled to nothing.
It's a pop-up
It
waterfall.
must have been like an ice dam that broke or something, or water just melted enough to break through the snow. And out of nowhere, we could get a waterfall. I hope nobody was underneath it on a trail or something. But
And if that wasn't like amazing enough, we continued to chat with this gentleman for a little bit longer. And then we discover that he's from a suburb that my family lived in Chicago, that his daughter is a film student or was a graduate film student from Columbia College, Chicago, which is where Jason and I went to school. That we had all of these Chicago things in common. He was familiar with the neighborhood that we had lived in. And I just thought, this is the most random, most awesome meeting. This guy comes over to talk to us about a pop-up waterfall. And then all of a sudden, we're all discovering, and I think he also had connections to Western Illinois, to your hometown.
Yeah, it was wild. Which is
wild.
this has happened a lot to us lately, too. That we've ran into people from our hometowns and just randomly start chatting with them and realizing that they worked at the same company that our parents worked at or something like that.
It's so amazing.
It was really cool. And it's just a sort of a nice sort of end to our day there. There was one other thing that we did in the park itself that was really wonderful. And that was we did one of our favorite things. We've talked about this many, many times before, is to gather a dinner and make it in the park and be there for sunset. So we did that at Tunnel View, which is sort of an overlook. You go up a road a bit, and there's a tunnel up there. And just before you go through the tunnel, there's this Tunnel View area, and there's a couple parking lots. And I'm sure it gets very busy when it's prime season. But
it's the iconic view down the valley.
Yeah, it's the iconic view that you get on postcards of Yosemite Valley with El Capitan and Bridal Veil Falls, and then just miles and miles ahead of you.
And so that is how we spent evening at sunset.
Yeah, it's just having sort of a tailgate dinner.
Charcuterie
and
board.
What happens at sunset there is you're actually not watching the sunset because you're facing east, the sun setting behind you. But as the sun sets, it's just the light that is dancing on the valley and breaking off the cliffs and changing the colors of all the rock is just incredible.
It was just, yeah.
And we thought it was done.
Just incredible.
We thought it was done. So all the light had sort of, when the sun had got down, all the light had went away. And we're like, oh, that was pretty. And then some more light started peeking back through, and it became phenomenal. It was just one of those. It's just the light, the way the light can squeeze through there from that last bit of sunset is just a sort of amazing experience, and it's probably the best thing we did the whole time we were there.
I don't know if it's a testament to the park or not, but my inability to actually form sentences as we're talking about this park is really quite something today on the show. Like, I can't describe to
Yeah.
you. Again, if you've listened to the Yellowstone episodes we did from a couple years ago, and you know that we had thought, and we did it with Grand Canyon too, we had thought, these are all the places everyone goes to. Are they going to be as spectacular as everyone says they are? Yes. Yes, they are. Yosemite is spectacular in every single way, and we barely scratched the surface of the
I
park.
have to add though, our best experiences at Great Smoky Mountains, at Yellowstone, at Zion, at Yosemite, uh, probably several others, have all been shoulder season. They've
100%.
all been spring or fall, when there's not as many crowds, but also spring. I mean, the California is going under a super bloom right now. There are wildflowers sprouting up everywhere. The wildlife and the water in the park was phenomenal, and that's the kind of stuff that you get when you're there in shoulder season without all the big crowds.
But you do sacrifice being able to visit some other places within the park,
Yeah,
places that are not open yet,
yeah.
and that is kind of the price that you pay in order to have a little bit of quiet, a little bit of
Well,
alone
it,
in the park.
and obviously there's a risk to it with the weather.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
lucked out. Like, if this was the week that we were supposed to be arriving, if we were arriving this weekend, we would be arriving to a closed valley. And then by the time it does open, probably a very wet, very muddy valley.
Yeah.
So we were very fortunate in our time there in the park. We did do a few other things outside of the park that we want to mention. So, where we were staying right outside the park is the Stanislaus National Forest. And we've talked a lot of times too about how the outskirts of a park will often be a national forest, and there is just as much beauty to be found there as well. And so, I really want to recommend the Carlin Falls Trail. I did that with Henry and then Jamie and Clay and their girls, and that was such a fantastic hike. Now, this time of year, this particular season in this park, there are a lot of downed branches and trees, and there were pop up little creeks and rivers that aren't normally there because they have had such a season of rain and snow. And we were doing a lot of climbing over logs or going through water that we wouldn't necessarily be going through. We did get to scramble up towards the end to get to the falls, but it was a totally doable hike for people of all ages. And the payoff, that waterfall, was spectacular. It was just rushing and it was gorgeous. And we got there at a beautiful time in the late afternoon and we were able to sit for a while. And wonderful hike. It was about, I think, somewhere around 3 miles total out and back. So, absolutely recommend that. We did go into Groveland and take advantage of the library one day. We should mention that Starlink was perfect where we were
Yeah, that
at
what was nice.
Yosemite
That's
Lakes.
part of what's nice about being able to choose your own site is that we were able to choose a site in the clearing
Hmm.
where there was plenty of room. And in fact,
Where all the Starlink users were.
I have to say, like, just and I'll do like another update on this in the future. But in general, Starlink's ability to deal with trees has gotten a lot better
Yeah,
over the
we're,
last 6 months or so.
as you can see, if you're watching this behind us, we have quite the forest behind us. But up at the front of our campsite, we have just enough of an opening that while Starlink does cut out a little bit more than normal, we've been able to use it just fine and continue
Yeah.
to do our work and do what we need to do. And that has been fantastic because we were concerned that that might be a little bit of an issue here. But we did go into Groveland and go visit the library. That's something we really like to do. And then, of course, it wouldn't be an RV Miles outing if we didn't go and find some pizza somewhere. And we went to a place called Two Guys pizza pie. 100% recommend this place. It was really highly reviewed on
It's
Yelp and
apparently very,
TripAdvisor.
very famous, and lots of people just drive up there to just go there and not even go to Yosemite.
Yes, I mean, I was getting all of the stories of people that come in from, the
Yeah.
Bay Area. They fly in to do some golf, they eat some pizza, and then they fly back out.
To me, it was really good pizza. It was the best pizza I've had in California so far. Um, but it was also pretty standard fare for any Midwesterner.
I loved it. I thought it was so good. I
I
think
mean,
the
it
real
was
test.
good. It's good Midwestern pizza that doesn't exist in the West.
The crust was so crunchy and chewy and a little malty. And I think the real test of a good pizza is if your cheese pizza is good. If your cheese pizza can stand on its own and it's just as good as if I had put all the kinds of toppings on it, then I think you have a very good pizza on your hands. And that's what we did. Our kids like cheese or sausage or pepperoni. That's what we ate. And it was great. Of course, it's pricey because, what you can do. But I absolutely recommend it. It's clear that the locals love it, but it's also clear that it's really popular with people that come to the area. So we did that. Another thing, the final thing we'll talk about that Jason and I did was not too far from the Yosemite Lakes RV Resort is the Rush Creek Lodge, which is this really beautiful resort hotel.
If you're not going to Yosemite in an RV and you're going in a car or you're flying in and getting a rental car, this is the place to stay.
It's beautiful. And we went over there specifically to have dinner one night and just have some drinks, just the two of us. It was close enough to the campground that we felt comfortable heading out to have a early dinner date night and to walk around the grounds. Beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. And their main building, you come in and there was this gorgeous just fireplace and lounge area for guests, and they had what looked like a staff that was there to play games and entertain, and they had like bingo or something going on. They had quiet little nook areas where you could read. They have 2 restaurants on site. Outside it had to have been a heated pool because people were in the pool and it was just too cold.
They had several fire pits going with s'mores being made. All the fires were like real logs, like big logs, like that don't fit in a normal fire pit.
It was really lovely. Like very charming and exactly what I would want if I was not going to be in the RV. And so we went in and we sat at the bar and we enjoyed a meal. You really liked, I think you had like a bison mac and cheese or something.
It was a bison chili mac.
Yeah, you really enjoyed that.
Really
the cocktails were great, and it was a really nice time. So if you have that and you don't want to have to drive all the way into Groveland and you're not going to go into the park, but you'd like to go out and have just a nice little meal, maybe just have a cocktail, head on over to that place if you are at Yosemite Lakes and enjoy that.
It's also a good place for supplies and things that if you wanted to grab breakfast or whatever, if you need to grab tire chains, because there are times that tire chains are required in Yosemite, things like that. They've got that all there. So it's just sort of a nice little stop on your way into the park.
Yeah, so that was a lot. We covered a lot about Yosemite, but if you have any questions that you would like to ask us, please go over to the RV Miles Facebook group and you can find the post for this episode. You can drop that question in there. We'll be happy to answer it. You can also see links to everything that we talked about over at rvmiles.com/274. That's the show notes for this episode. But yeah, that is not the last time that Yosemite National Park is going to see the Eppersons.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll check the level of our tanks.
We'll be right back.
More in a moment, but first, this video is sponsored by RVmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding, who have increased our discount again. Abby, the kids, and I have been using their mattresses in our last 2 RVs and we couldn't be happier. We are sleeping better and we were able to customize it to fit our exact needs. Our kids' odd-sized bunks in the new trailer, not a problem. RVmattress.com offers a 120-night sleep trial along with a 10-year warranty. Plus, their products are toxin-free, made in the USA, and incredibly simple to set up. We've had them shipped to campgrounds, no problem, and you can just unroll them and let them expand. RVmattress.com offers free shipping, and for the month of April only, is offering the RV Miles community 30% off when you visit rvmattress.com/rvmiles. That's rvmattress.com/rvmiles for 30% off. I'll put a link in the description. Thanks to rvmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding for supporting this channel, and to you for supporting our sponsors.
RV Miles is sponsored by the Road Pass Pro suite of travel apps for RVers. We love using all the apps in the Road Pass suite to plan our travels. Togo RV, Road Trippers, OvernightRVParking.com, and Campendium. You get premium access to all of them for $49.99 a year. Find the best campgrounds, the best boondocking sites, the best roadside attractions, and the best routes to get to them all in your RV, tailored for its length and height to get you there safely. Use the code RVMiles10X to get $10 off your Road Pass Pro membership at roadpass.com. That's RVMiles10X for $10 off at roadpass.com.
Welcome back. It is time to check the level of our tanks, sponsored by Matt's RV Reviews Liquefied RV Toilet Treatment, the no BS RV toilet chemical that really works. You can check it out along with all of our recommendations in our Amazon store at amazon.com/shop/RVmiles. All right, Jay, what is in your black tank this week?
My black tank is when campgrounds, and I guess it's not just campgrounds, when anybody sells you firewood that is not seasoned. It is the most frustrating thing, but particularly when campgrounds do it, because then
They know better.
everybody they definitely know better, and everybody in the campground is burning a fire with the same wood, and they're all trying to make really, really smoky fires because the wood has not been seasoned.
Yeah, that's when Abby has to go inside, and Abby doesn't get to be outside
If
anymore.
you don't know, wood needs to sit after it's been cut for at least a year, so that the moisture content can go out of it. Otherwise, it just doesn't burn well. Most wood, some woods doesn't matter, but if it's got moisture in it, it just doesn't burn. It smokes, right? And you can tell when it's heavy when you buy it and you pick it up and it's all real heavy, you know that it's got a lot of moisture content. You can also look at the end of the wood before you buy it and see if it's got cracks in it. Cracks are a good sign that that some of that moisture is gone and it's sort of opening itself up. But it's just really annoying to be in a campground where everybody is trying to burn a really, really smoky fire.
Yeah, so campgrounds, if you're going to charge us what you charge us for firewood,
$9 here for a bundle of firewood.
try it out, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Though I will say this place has good firewood, but it's $9.
That's still $9. All right, what is in your fresh tank this week?
My fresh tank is a new show on Netflix called The Diplomat.
How dare you?
Abby's a little upset that I started watching it without her. She had a ladies' night out, and I watched a couple of episodes.
Hike out
Okay.
is what I was calling
So
it.
I
Thank you.
watched 2 episodes of The Diplomat, and it is a show. It stars Carrie Russell, and she is a sort of no nonsense, like ex-military diplomat that has been made. She's been made the ambassador to the United Kingdom at a time when that very day that she becomes ambassador, a UK ship has been it was exploded or hit with a missile or something like that, and they're trying to figure out who it was, and everybody thinks it's Iran, and there's going to be sounds like they're going to start a war with
intense.
Iran, but she knows it's not them because she's an Iran expert. Anyway, it comes out they're trying to groom her to eventually be a vice president. And
You're giving all of it away.
It's all in the first episode. That's all in the first episode. And it is just, if you're a fan of shows like The West Wing, as I am, or anything sort of political, there's not like a lot of violence or anything in the show at all. It's all very political. That's
But
my jam.
if you don't like adult words,
There are a lot of adult words.
Jason says there's a lot of
There's
adult words.
a lot of big person words.
A lot of big person words.
Uh,
I can't believe you watched this without me. In fact,
I never in a million years thought you would want to watch it, but I'm thrilled.
Whoa.
I'm thrilled to stop watching it and start over
Okay.
with you because I would love to watch it with you.
What I think perhaps what happened and why you watched this on Monday is because I flat out said to you, I want to watch this show.
I
Like
never
we
even
were talking about it, and
I don't even remember.
it was in your brain.
I didn't know I'd even heard of this show.
Yes,
Anyway, Carrie Russell, phenomenal. I had no idea.
Oh, I loved her
She's
in The
wonderful.
Americans.
She's
She was so good.
I haven't seen her in anything since like.
Wait, she was in a Mando episode. What are you talking about? Wasn't she? She played a Mandalorian in like the first season, I
Oh, did
think.
she? I didn't
Yeah,
remember
I'm pretty
that.
sure she was
Oh.
she
Well, I
was a
felt like
Mando.
I hadn't seen her in anything since the 90s. So
Well, you
anyway.
haven't. I
Yeah.
have. You probably haven't.
She's really good. All right, what's in your black tank this week?
Okay, so my black tank is a gray tank because I love it and I don't love it at the same
You
time.
always bend the rules. Of
I do
this.
bend the
You know,
rules,
the
and that's
black
okay,
tank
'cause I
has to be
can't.
full. Like
No.
those
The gray tank is also full.
those
And
sensors never work.
listen, the gray tanks, the gray tank gets stinky too.
Okay,
Okay, so a
what's
gray
it-
tank can be
what is-
stinky.
what's your gray
Anyway,
tank?
my gray tank this week is the spicy sweet chili Doritos.
Oh, they're so good.
because they're so good
Oh,
that they're too good to the point where we consumed a bag faster on a travel day than we should have.
so we watched Good Mythical Morning a lot on YouTube. It's a fun thing to watch
It's
with the family.
how we wake our children up. We'll put an episode on and then they love it.
Often they do like food comparisons, and one of the ones that we recently watched is where they tried every flavor of Doritos and we're trying to pick a winner, and it was this sweet chili Doritos that ended up being the winner.
And I was influenced. And I was like, I have to try these now because Doritos are, the nacho cheese. They're the goat. And I had to try.
They
and
weren't wrong.
They weren't
They're
wrong.
slightly Asian.
They are.
it's-
They.
it's-
The title does not lie. Spicy, sweet, chili. They're not. They're not wrong. That's exactly what it tastes like.
It's not overwhelming though.
But it's overwhelming
Yeah.
for like my waistline now because
okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
we ate. There's like a lot of them, and
Yeah.
I now I'm like, great. This is like I want to go buy another bag, and I'm like, I can't eat any more of these. Nothing about this chip is good for me.
All right, what's in your fresh tank?
So my fresh tank is that the milepost is out. The guide to traveling through Alaska is here. This is a massive book with really tiny print on on everything you need to know about traveling to Alaska. And
Yeah.
this has been, I've just been devouring it like all week long. Even if you aren't planning to head up there this year or even next year, this is worth picking up. You can get it on Amazon. I'll put it in our Amazon shop under, I have a new section in there now of our fresh tank recommendations. You can go in and see it. It is the final missing piece, I think, that really like ticked me into my excitement for Alaska.
You know, it's one of the few road trips in the U.S. left that you really kind of need a guidebook for because there's no cell service on so much of it, right? And it's great that they update it every single year with all kinds of new information about Western Canada and Alaska and all the different routes that you can take. And it's very detailed down to like when you pass this mile marker, look this way and you might see this. And this is a great spot for, moose watching and whatever. It's miles and miles of information.
And they have been doing this for 75 editions. This is the 75th edition of the Milepost. And it is so thick and there is so much information that they probably send that to press and immediately have to starting.
Yeah, I would imagine, as they start traveling and going through all the routes again this year, they have to update it. Yeah.
Be kind of a cool job,
Yeah.
I have to say. So if you haven't seen one, you should definitely go check them out. It's a really cool publication.
Yeah, there's a digital edition, but it's weird. Like
You want to hold it.
well, but you also have to buy the print edition to get
Yeah.
the digital edition. I suppose you could buy the print edition and have it sent to someone else, but
I love digital magazines for the most part, but I want a magazine in
It's
my
just
hand.
hard for some people to get on the road.
Oh,
not knowing
100%.
where it's going to be or whatever. But it is
But
on Amazon.
you
so.
can get this one on Amazon, so
Yeah.
you can. If you can't have it sent to your campground, you can always have it sent to an Amazon locker in the area and pick it up. There's just something about holding a magazine and just flipping through those pages.
Which is what Jamie and Clay did. They ordered a copy for us and for them, and it's quite awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, that's it for this week's episode of the RV Miles podcast.
Yes, it is. And as we ask every single week, we're going to ask again this week. If you are enjoying the show, please head over to Apple Podcast and leave RV Miles a 5-star review. That 5-star review is making a world of difference for our small business. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are interested in joining us on May 1st for our May edition of Monthly Night Live, just go over to rvmiles.com/milemarkers to learn more about joining the Mile Marker Club, and then we look forward to seeing you on that evening. Any questions for Jason and I, please go and put them in the RV Miles Facebook group, or if you would like, you can also email us at editor@rvmiles.com. Until next week, please stay healthy, stay safe, and keep logging those RV miles.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.